Hey gang, I wanted to talk to you about Snyder fans. And no, I don't mean someone who claims to be a fan of Zack Snyder but doesn't like the same movies of his filmography that I do. I'm here to talk to you about people who hate Zack Snyder and pose as his fans to act out a parody of what they claim his fans are but have never actually been, to convince the internet to help them then bully the actual fans. Now, I've talked about this a couple times in other videos. I'll put thumbnails up here so you can find them. And I'm just going to give you a brief overview about this. So the first time I became aware of it was probably the beheading image that went around back in the day. And I've talked about this before. It's based on unused Batman v Superman promo art that Zack and his second unit photographer Clay Enos did. In it, it depicts Wonder Woman who has been traveling the world and she's decapitated some of her enemies, and it was going to go the angle of a hardened warrior who softens with humanity, which were ideas that were later used for Twilight of the Gods. And maybe, arguably, a little bit of Korra and Rebel Moon, but that character actually was thought up back when he was in film school, so I guess technically she was the blueprint, not Wonder Woman. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. It made people mad. It was a temporary photo before Patty Jenkins had started doing principal photography on Wonder Woman. And it never made it into the film. But it made a lot of people mad, which is very strange. Anyway, so then the guy made an image. He made it look like a Snyder fan had done it. And then it turned out he was a homophobic guy who hates Zack Snyder. Then later on, another person copied that, but made a couple of key mistakes that I've pointed out in other videos. And this time it was Superman that they based it on. Already copying the first guy, right? So we've got another step removed from the original art. And it uses a logo that has been a point of contention, especially back when this came out, which is kind of the deep lore you need to know from being on the internet back then, so I don't expect everyone to know it. But basically, it would be like putting trunks on Henry Cavill now. It's a thing that isn't really that important. It's an aesthetic choice. But it has been harped on so much that on principle, you'll never see a fan of Henry Cavill, Zack Snyder, who has been on the other end of why doesn't he have trunks, why doesn't he smile more, where are all the colors? And we're not talking about color theory today, but trust me, he had plenty. They would just never put that on there. Like, that's a thing they would never concede. But this person doesn't actually like Zack Snyder. He's just trying to emulate the works of what he thinks people who do would do, again, emulating another guy who hates Zack Snyder, all based on a piece of art that they didn't like, that didn't make it into a movie in 2016. So we're already pretty far down the batshit crazy rabbit hole. The Bat Cave, I suppose. Anyway, then there was the other guy. I debunked him. He did the AI version of this and then was like, okay, Snyder fans, let's fight, but forgot that he tagged his own handle on it with his shitty AI art, which is extra offensive because he used AI to make it. Anyway, that guy's just a interaction farm. He's probably like 20 guys with a whole bunch of cell phones and iPads, and I don't think he has an opinion for or against Snyder, that specific one. The other two clearly do not like him. And then outside of the let's pretend to be Zack Snyder fans and a riff on the exact same image that we got mad about that wasn't in a movie crowd, there was the most famous one that I know of called Pat the Apex Shill, who accidentally let slip that he, a diehard Matt Reeves fan who hates Zack Snyder, had been posing as a Snyder fan and clearly doing what he thought Snyder fans did, but everyone was so shocked by the weirdness of what he was doing, it was pretty clear that no one else had ever done any of these things. He was creating shrines to Zack Snyder, burning effigies, saying that you will convert, making a whole bunch of edgy edits. He had a mask. He had multiple people involved in this. There were up to 4 people in one of his videos on screen at the same time in different robes, unless he filmed it and edited it so he could be in the same shot multiple times, which is actually even more sad if he doesn't have any friends, and that he spent that much more time trying to convince us that he did. And he let it slip that he was actually a Snyder hater, and then he said it was a social experiment, and then around February-ish, he came back. Suddenly he was, let's destroy the DCU, James Gunn is horrible, kill James Gunn, do all these horrible things. And it was just like, again, an exaggerated version of what people claim Snyder fans are, but you've never seen an actual Snyder fan doing, saying, or enacting, especially, again, the burning effigies and videos and stuff. Very weird. He already got outed once, and he's just hoping that, because 2 or so years have passed since that happened, that everyone forgot, I guess. And around the time that he started this, another account called Church of Snyder popped up, and he has been saying, spoil the new Superman movie, boycott the new movie, James Gunn is horrible, blah, 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 blah. And, like, yeah, James Gunn, I think, is a hacky director. I'm not a big fan of his schlop. But I could say the same about most movies that come out, and I just don't watch them. And, right now his pinned tweet is a Reddit post, which is what we're going to get into now. A Reddit post by an account that had been active for like 6 years, posted maybe 5 times, and only since the DCU was announced started acting very pro-Snyder, anti-Gunn. Now, I'm not one to say that James Gunn is manipulating things, but I have covered when Casey Blois at Warner Brothers did this, along with several other executives, which I cover in my first book. He's been accused by people who worked at the MCU of him and Joss Whedon both leaking things so that they can control narratives and dunking on things. And it's not even the first random account that shows up. He answers a very specific question for, and then that account disappears. So it's a little fishy. And this is a guy who's been online for so long that he's already had to delete thousands of tweets for being, let's just say, not workplace appropriate. So this Reddit post, right, which James Gunn commented on and has become the new headline of, wow, James Gunn claps back at the cult. Mind you, it got downvoted to hell by actual active users who are clearly fans of Zack Snyder. It got removed by the mods. And then the mod team said, hey, don't act like this. Sorry if anyone was offended that this person, came up with the idea that you should boycott a movie. Which, again, I don't know if it's really a boycott if you just see a movie that looks bad and you don't want it. I feel like this is more you saw something, it's shit, and you're not going to go watch it because it looks like The Flash, but somehow with less color. So they've managed to take a step back in quality. And, for me, that's why I wouldn't go see it. But anyway, all of this amidst the anti-Snyder subreddit doxing people and bragging about swatting people and suspending accounts, which James Gunn had nothing to say about, which kind of tells you what he's cherry-picking to talk about. Anyway, all of this to say, that Reddit post from a fishy account on a subreddit where it got clowned, being the pinned post long after it's been deleted, a little coincidental. The fact that it reactivated the same time that the guy who was already debunked as being a Matt Reeves diehard who hates Zack Snyder came back online seems a little suspicious, especially since they both operate on the same grift. Mind you, no one has covered any of this, which is bananas, because I figure even if you hate Zack Snyder, this is such a wackadoo-ass story, you'd want to talk about how just batshit crazy it is. I mean, that's going to drive clicks alone from just the saga you're going to be able to tell people, right? And all of this just magically happened so James Gunn could do a victory lap dunking on Snyder fans, the people who actually took down and banned the account in question who had been anti-DCU, something you won't see happen in the subreddits and Twitter circles where they attack Snyder fans. Right after a low pre-sales report for the free tickets with Amazon Prime for the Superman movie. It's tracking worse than The Flash. But now James Gunn gets to rush in and he can be like, hey, maybe the new movie looks like shit and maybe we're having low pre-sales, but fuck Snyder fans, right? Lamau. And that's sort of like the Warner Brothers default response. And this just in, I shit you not. I was in the middle of editing this, getting ready to hit export, when the Brazilian Snyder fan page actually shared something. And I was like, damn, that's a really good catch. There's way more to this than I thought. So they shared this. An account called Some Horse Around did phenomenal research on this. And I'm going to skim through real quick. It may have to become its own video because some damn interesting detective work here. So attention, DC Snyder fandom, thread discussing the situation and possibly the person responsible for the Reddit post that even caught the attention of the head of DC Studios, like I've been saying, that James Gunn snapped back on. Disclaimer, I'm about to expose a 15-year-old with mental health issues without using his real name. How many times have I had that experience, right, where I say, look at this person who's being really nasty, and then it turns out that their posts, when they're not being nasty to Snyder fans, are legitimately crying out for help mentally, and they're just looking for someone to punish. Shocker. Anyway, he briefly goes through all of this, and he links this account, who accidentally, once again, tweets from his main account, just like Pat the Apex Shield did back in 2021, 2022. Talking about he was super unhinged, he did a bunch of fake, oh, my brother took over the account, blah, blah, blah. You know, those like, hey, this is his mom, you shouldn't break up with him type of weirdo mind game child stuff. And it keeps going, and it connects back since the account Angel, Michael, Void, Brock, John Fincy is the one using the Church of Snyder account, the one that I talked about earlier in this video, which I did not see this thread until just now, which had that pinned post, which I said was suspicious because it was almost immediately taken down by the mod team. His account was then banned from the subreddit, and then his account was nuked from Reddit overall. He self-deleted, and only a few people managed to get a few screenshots of his past behavior, which I have shown in this video. Now, that I thought was suspicious, but now we have proof that the person running that weird Church of Snyder account, which reactivated around the same time that we saw the Snyder cultist weird video page come back online. Oh, yeah. So this is the Church of Snyder account admitting that he is that guy and arguing. And he says, "I'll be posting shit sooner than you realize." Interesting. Basically, some horse around comes in. He says, "I believe the Church of Snyder, Angel, Void, JF is the same person. I ask the community not to harass the kid. If you want to approach him, simply ask him respectfully to close down his account and to speak to his parents about getting help." I want to point out, just real quick, that this guy, we're very likely a frame job to make people hate something, and the studio's taking advantage of it, and it's all very sus as hell. I just think it's interesting. Amidst the doxing attempts against Snyder fans, this guy's protecting someone's identity while informing everyone to be polite. There's kind of a difference in the way these fandoms handle things. You will never see this behavior given to Snyder fans. Be patient with the kid. He was exposed to a really toxic side of the DC fandom. Apparently he has ties to a group chat with Brevitor. Brevitor, really toxic guy. He saw someone who was saying that Zack Snyder murdered his kid, which, by the way, the same subreddit that was doxing people was saying that Zack was hiring Saudi Arabians to murder his daughter so he could get out of DC and make a UFC movie. Timeline doesn't make sense. Also, go fuck yourself. Brevitor saw people saying stuff like that and was like, yeah, Snyder fans are still worse because they want sequels to movies I don't like. So, yeah, this has been kind of crazy. This kind of, for me, just fully confirms the final little bit here to wrap everything up. This was not a Snyder fan who posted on Reddit. It was a mentally ill 15-year-old emulating the behaviors he saw from a mentally ill, I would guess, between 25 to 35-year-old, judging by the videos that he's posted of himself. Mentally, we're talking closer to 13. Then again, copying the people who were parodying unused Wonder Woman art from the Batman v Superman movie. All of this to frame Snyder fans as something that they aren't. Toxic religious zealots who want to ruin everything going on. In reality, that's the behavior of the people who hate Zack Snyder. And at the end of the day, these are just movies. This is a weird thing to do. You shouldn't be doing a psyop against a movie fandom. Super weird. And if you are at this level of frazzled and mentally ill, please log off and talk to a mental health professional. Performing these, which I call a Zack Op, where it's a black op, psyop, where you pretend to be a Snyder fan so you can convince people to do evil things. I talk about it in my first book, Rebooted. It's a CIA operation, and it's not good or ethical. It's even weirder to do it when it's not for oil, but rather for, online movie clout? Because it's not like this influences box office that much. It might move the needle 1% or 2%. It's just worth noting, right, that the predominant narrative around a fandom is, in fact, manipulated by people who hate that fandom. They go out and act in a way that is what they say that these people do, but never have. Because if they did, they wouldn't have to put on a costume and go be the big bad wolf themselves. They could just simply point, like I have in this video and all of my others, showing you the way that real people act with real evidence proving it's them. I guess you could say with fandoms, there's more than meets the eye.
Transformers, more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons.